Hello, Packers fans, and welcome to another edition of the Pack Attack Cast. We're going to continue our series looking position by position as we get you ready for the start of training camp in just under 4 weeks. Very excited. I'll be there for the first 3 practices as well as the owners' meeting, and I'll be reporting to you live from all of those practices and giving you all the Packers content that you need. So just give us a like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Trying to get our subs up to 5,000 before the start of the season, which I think we can certainly do with your help. And those likes certainly help us with that YouTube algorithm, so we appreciate that as well. As I said, today we're going to take a look at the wide receivers. We're going to take a look at what the wide receivers did in 2024, take a look at what we learned from OTAs and minicamp, and take a look at what we project for the wide receivers in 2025. As always, I like to take a look at the players involved in coaching all of these all the coaches that are responsible for coaching these players. Because I do think this is something that a lot of people don't focus on, but I think it's very important that we look at not just the wide receivers in this case, but what the support the wide receivers have from the coaching staff. So first of all, let's take a look at our coach for the wide receivers room. That is Ryan Mahaffrey. Mahaffrey. Got it? Third time's the charm, right? Ryan Mahaffrey, he's wide receivers coach. He joined the Packers in 2021 as an offensive quality control coach. Was promoted to assistant offensive line coach in 2022, and in 2024 became the wide receivers coach. So this is a coach that has had a year of continuity with both the players and the rest of the coaching staff at the wide receiver position. So it's really great to see, as we've said in past videos, the continuity that this Packers coaching staff brings to the table. In addition to that, he enters his 5th season with the Packers, and before that, he coached 8 years on the collegiate level. So this is a coach that has 13 years of coaching experience, and this year, just like last year, he's focused on the wide receiver room. Now, it's also important to note that Matt LaFleur spends a lot of time and energy on the offense. As we know, he's the de facto offensive coordinator. The offense is his baby. And I've seen both from minicamp and OTAs that Matt LaFleur tends to spend a lot of time with the wide receiver group. He's very vested in them because it's a big part of his passing offense. Also, especially right now with a lot of young wide receivers in that group, I can see why he would spend some extra time with the receivers. So it's not just Ryan working with these receivers, but Matt LaFleur is heavily invested in these receivers and getting them where they need to be during the season. So I just wanted to point that out. Now let's take a look at the wide receivers we have in the wide receiver room. Take a look at what they've done in the past, any notes that we have from OTA and minicamp that would be useful, and also how we think this roster is going to break down with respect to wide receivers in 2025. So first up, we have Romeo Doubs. There's one thing that if you watch a game for the Green Bay Packers, there's a very clear connection between Romeo Doubs and Jordan Love. They have a lot of on-the-field communication. You see a lot of energy between them off on the sidelines. You also see them excited when they make plays together, kind of on a different level than I've seen with the other receivers. And I feel like when Jordan Love needs a play, he needs a big play, either in the end zone or when they need a big first down, I feel like he tends to look for Romeo Doubs first before he looks at the other receivers, unless there's a play designated for a particular receiver. So you cannot underestimate the value for your quarterback to have a player on the field that he relies on and trusts. And that's why Romeo Doubs is in a great position coming into 2025 as a key player for this offense. He's pretty much a lock to be the week 1 starter, barring an injury or a trade. There's one negative for Romeo Doubs, and that's his availability last year. He missed 1 game due to a suspension. That's water under the bridge. He and the team are in a good place, so I'm not going to belabor that suspension. It's already been resolved. And by the way, Matt LaFleur, Romeo Doubs, everybody involved with that suspension handled it in a very professional way. It was not drama after the fact. So hats off to Romeo for that. I think that suspension kind of helped him get his head right and remind him that he's a part of the team, not the major elite player of the team, if you will. I feel like he was getting a little too big for his britches. That happens for wide receivers from time to time. But one of the big negatives, as I said, he's missed 1 game due to suspension. Don't think that's going to happen again this year. But he missed 2 games, or parts of 2 games last year due to concussions. So concussions is a big concern for him. We saw that in the season. At the end of the season, he had a concussion, cost him some playing time. And in the playoff game against the Eagles, he had a really bad concussion, and I don't know if he would have been able to play the next day. Now, Brian Gutekunst says he's not concerned about concussions in 2025. He thinks that's all behind the player. But it's still important to keep in mind that there's always this potential that he could have another head injury, and it could require some significant time away from the field. Another thing that's important to keep in mind for Romeo Doubs is he is a free agent in 2026. I don't know if he will be back in 2026 unless he has a huge year this year because of the concussion issues and because of the new wide receivers that are going to be brought on the team as part of the draft. So this is really a make or break it year for Romeo Doubs, either with the Packers or with another team next year. So I expect Romeo Doubs to lay it all out on the field in 2025, and I think he's going to be a key part of this offense again. I do expect him to have better numbers than last year because he's not going to miss, hopefully, games due to injury and suspension. So I think Romeo Doubs is only going to produce more production for the Packers in 2025. Up next, we have Jayden Reed. Jayden Reed is kind of the engine that makes the offense go. He is a playmaker in the slot. He can run, he can catch, he can make big plays out of nothing. There's 2 problems. He led the league in drops in 2024 with 10 drops on 75 targets. And that has to be greatly improved. And a lot of those drops tended to come at the end of the season where I felt like he was losing steam. Maybe they used him too much and he was a little run down. I'm not sure what happened there, but Jayden Reed clearly had a much better first half of 2024 than he had the second half of 2025. That being said, Jayden Reed is a playmaker. He's a starter. I expect them to maybe find ways with either Savion Williams or Matthew Golden to maybe reduce his touches a little bit to make him more effective per play, even if he gets less plays. So I expect the same production, but maybe on fewer plays. But Jayden Reed is the type of player who could take a handoff in the backfield and make it a big play. He could take a short reception and make it a big play. He's a big part of this offense, and I think that will happen in 2025 as well. Next up, we have Christian Watson. His top ability is speed, but he will be sidelined probably until late October after coming off an ACL injury at the end of the year. It generally takes a full year for a player to recover from an ACL injury. Can he have his speed back for the end of the year? Will his role be taken by another player before he gets back? He will start the season most likely as injured on the injured reserve. So, is there a role for him when he comes back, and how effective will he be? And that's the type of thing that the Packers will find out in practice. Once they take him off the PUP, he can practice for 4 weeks, and then he either has to be started or shut down for the whole season. So we're going to see in those practices how back he is and what role he can play. Christian Watson is also a free agent in 2026. So the question is, will the Packers re-sign him for 2026? Will they give him like a prove-it deal due to his injury and see if he can get back to his old play? That's something we're going to see more in 2026. But my biggest question is, with him out until October, maybe November, will the offense find other solutions to his role, and he might not have a role when he comes back into the lineup. Now, I do want to talk about something here. It came out over the weekend. He posted some film on Instagram showing him making cuts and making plays by himself in practice, not in pads, not against an opponent, in practice. So we're going to have to see if maybe he gets back earlier than expected. But right now, until the coaches say he's back before October, I don't expect him back before October or November. Next up on our list is a great player in theory. He always finds a way to get open. He always has the potential to make big plays. But there's always a but that keeps Dontayvion Wicks from being an elite player. If you look at the tape, he always finds ways to get open, and he can make plays if the play runs long enough. What I mean by that is he finds ways to get open. The longer the play, the more open he is, because he's good at running solid routes and using his speed to get open in the second layer of the secondary. But there's one problem, and it's the same problem we have with Jayden Reed, and it's drops. He was second in the league in drops to Jayden Reed, and that's a major issue with him. He can get open, but he has to prove that he can hold on to the ball. If he could solve this problem, he could actually be an elite receiver in this league. He's got the size, he's got the speed, he's got the talent, he's got the route running. The problem is his hands. If he can fix that in training camp, Dontayvion Wicks might be a surprise player that takes this offense to the next level. He might actually end up being the player that takes Christian Watson's role if he can get his hands under control. So we're going to have to watch that very closely in training camp. Once again, I will be there for training camp. Very excited about that. Hopefully I'll run into some Pack Attack Cast subscribers and get to see you guys in practice and at the owners meeting. Very excited about that. Next up, we have Matthew Golden. He was drafted in the first round this year. First time the Packers have drafted a first-round wide receiver in over a decade. We all know the story. But if you look at the tape for Matthew Golden, it's not just speed. He has 4.29 speed in the combine, but more importantly, he has the ability to change gears effortlessly. He can go from flat out to slowing it down to back to flat out. He could go medium speed to lull the defender into a sense of comfort and then make a cut and go full speed. He has that ability to be a playmaker in the short to long passing game. So I'm very excited about Matthew. Now, where he really made his hay in Texas is in the short to intermediate range pass attack. Now, the question I always have with Matthew Golden is that because his quarterback in Texas was not really good at long passing game. We know Jordan Love can throw a dime deep down the field and hit his player in stride and make a big play. So is Matthew Golden going to be more explosive with a better quarterback? My expectations are he will be, but I want you all to temper your enthusiasm for Matthew Golden in 2025. The Packers historically bring their wide receivers up to speed very slowly. Look for Matthew Golden to have packages or plays where he comes into the game and then he goes back out. He's not going to be an every down starter unless he just explodes and he's so good they can't keep him off the field. So look for him to be sprinkled in along with your regular starters with plays designed to get him open in the middle, because that's the strength of his game. I expect him to have a big impact in 2025 as a supplemental wide receiver, but he's really going to probably break out in 2026 when he has more targets. So let's see what happens in 2025. Let's be excited about Matthew Golden, but also have realistic expectations about what you want to have from that receiver. And we'll have to see how that goes from there. Next up, we have Mecole Hardman. Mecole Hardman is the veteran of this wide receiver group. He was brought in as a free agent. He is an excellent player on returns and a Super Bowl champion with the Kansas City Chiefs. He has flashed big plays in minicamp. We've seen him finish 2 practices with big plays in the offense. He still has speed and a veteran presence in this group. I expect him to make the roster as a returner and as a depth receiver. So don't expect big plays from Hardman, but look for timely big plays in the passing game from Hardman. When they roll out 4 receivers and they need some speed on the sideline, that's where you're going to see Hardman making hopefully some big plays this year. Next up, we have Savion Williams. Williams is a huge target and can make plays as a receiver, runner, even as a passer. So I look at Savion Williams as a jumbo-sized Jayden Reed, if that makes sense to you. He can make moves, make plays in the backfield. He can make moves as a receiver. He can even throw the ball. You know, could the Packers possibly look at some wildcat situations with Savion Williams? I think it would be very interesting if the Packers took a look at some wildcat opportunities. You throw Jordan Love out as a receiver. You have a bunch of other receivers wide, along with Kraft as well. And then you have Savion Williams take the snap in the backfield and see how the defense adjusts to that. I'll bet you on a play like that, Savion Williams could get 4 to 5 yards very consistently. Could this be the Packers' answer to the tush push? Having Savion Williams in some sort of a wildcat formation on either short yardage or as a change of pace play. I'm very excited about that. But just like with Matthew Golden, you're going to see them bring Savion Williams in very slowly into this passing attack. I think Savion Williams is really going to have a breakout year, maybe in 2027. So he's going to get some gadget plays. He's going to be a player they bring for a different look, for a change of pace on the offense. He's not going to be an every down starter in 2025, maybe in 2026 or 2027. But that does not mean Savion Williams cannot be a key part of this offense with timely plays designed for him. And Matt LaFleur is excellent at designing plays for players, and I'm sure he's excited to make some plays for Savion Williams this year. Next up, we have Malik Heap. He flashes from time to time, but has not become a must player on the roster. Likely Malik Heap is playing for a practice squad slot, and could he be a player that's traded at the end of training camp in the event another team needs some wide receivers? So I don't see Malik Heap as an impact player. I see him as a player that is most likely going to be on the practice squad. And we'll talk about that a little later. Next up, we have Bo Melton. He's shown some flashes, especially in 2023 down the stretch, but has not been a true breakout player. Given the crush of players at the position, he's actually seen some cornerback positions, cornerback snaps, which he played in high school and college. My guess is he and Heath are playing for a practice squad spot. His position versatility might get Bo Melton on this roster as a wide receiver depth player, plus the ability to play some cornerback in a pinch. So we're going to watch that very closely. Next up, we have Sam Houston Jr. He was an unrestricted free agent that has some good moments in camp, but I feel he's a player that just loses out due to the numbers. We'll talk about that later. Same thing, Julian Hicks, 2024 unsigned free agent that I think will also be pushed off the roster this year. So there's a lot of potential in this group. It might be the deepest in the NFL, but this group has to get the ability to be trusted in the passing game. They have to find ways as a group to stop the drops. Look for the team to watch this closely in training camp, and if a receiver is letting the ball hit the dirt on catchable balls, they might find themselves falling down the depth chart for playing time in practice and in the preseason. Also, if there's a player who's red hot in practice, that this sort of thing can push the player to the top. So let's say Dontayvion Wicks is catching every ball in training camp. Suddenly, he is going to become a go-to player in practice and in the preseason, and that will increase his stock going into the regular season. So what are my thoughts on this group? How do I think this is going to shake out in training camp? I think the team will carry as many receivers as they can get away with to get them as many options as possible in the passing game, especially with Watson on the injured reserve to start the season. This coach loves to use scheme to get players free in space, and there are a lot of weapons here that many NFL teams would love to have on their roster. So let's talk about the roster here. I think the Green Bay Packers will keep 7 wide receivers on the roster, but there's some reasons behind that. I think the 7 on the active roster are Doubs, Reed, Wicks, Golden, Hardman primarily as a returner, Williams, and I think Bo Melton will make the cut due to his ability to also play some cornerback. That is my thoughts going into training camp, but if a player gets to a second level or explodes in training camp or preseason, that list might be shaken up a bit. But for right now, I have Doubs, Reed, Wicks, Golden, Hardman primarily as a returner, Williams as a gadget player, and Bo Melton because he can also play corner, making this team at wide receiver. Injured reserve will be Watson, and he could return mid-October. So that's part of the reason that the Packers will have an extra wide receiver right now, is because they're waiting for Watson to come back, and they want as many options as possible to fill that Watson role. So look for that to happen. Practice squad, I don't think there'll be any wide receivers on the practice squad because they're going to keep 7 on the active roster, and they need to save room on the practice squad for other positions. So that's my breakdown for wide receivers for the Green Bay Packers going into training camp for 2025. Please give us a like and subscribe if you've made it this far, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. In a couple days, I'm going to have a breakdown of the cornerback room, which is not as bad as some people like to think. I think our corners are actually going to be a strength of this defense going into 2025, and we're going to talk about that in the next video. As always, give us a subscribe and go Pack Go!